Affluent clients think they're rational. They've got money, they have a lot of success under their belt, but in a financial advisory relationship, I've got 40 years of evidence and 40 years of experience to tell you that affluent clients are not rational when it comes to money. Now, my name's Mark Little. I want to cover a couple of issues that I think are critical if your goal is to serve individuals or families, helping them coordinate their financial affairs. So I call this role financial advisor. You might be working in investment management. You may be working in financial planning. You may be working in other areas of financial services. But if it's your job to coordinate the financial affairs of an affluent individual or of an affluent family in any way whatsoever, you need to be aware of the fact that affluent clients are actually quite irrational when it comes to money. Now, the reason that I'm saying this is just it becomes so obvious the more decades that you serve these types of clients. Now, obviously, they've accumulated a lot of money. They've achieved a lot of success. So they have certainly figured out a lot in life. But somehow this always translates into them thinking that when it comes to big financial decisions, like when you're sitting down to deploy a large portfolio of assets and invest it in a certain allocation or whatever the case, whenever you're making decisions regarding big sums of money with these affluent clients, you need to know that they think they are approaching this topic with total logic, that every financial decision is made quite logically using rational thought, and that they're in essence sticking to the facts and making those decisions based on facts. I'm telling you that is not what's happening. The more affluent and the more successful the client, I would say the more the stakes are higher, and that the decisions are based on emotion and then later explained through rational thought. All right. So, and then we all do this. I think you recognize behavioral economics well enough to know that this is true in all of us. We tend to act on emotion and then justify it with logic. Okay. Now, the problem is when you are in charge of coordinating the financial affairs for an affluent individual or an affluent family, you can't just come right out and say that. Like, it doesn't work to say, well, you do know that you're operating on emotion here and you're about to make this multi-million-dollar decision based on emotion rather than logic. That doesn't work. So the question is, what does work? Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's a long road to getting there, and you have to start early. My recommendation is you begin having conversations before the relationship begins. And it is to set the stage for what I think is really the business that we're all in. I think, yes, we think we're in the investment management or financial planning or whatever we do in financial services. We think that that's what we've been hired to do and that's what the client values. No, that's not it. The client will recognize this later and not recognize it in the moment. But the real job that we have, if we're going to be really good at this, is to be skilled and to be prepared to talk these affluent clients out of a horrible emotional mistake that they are going to make at some point because fear takes over. When you're making a recommendation that involves a lot of money, well, there they are thinking, the stakes are high. If I screw this up, my family, my ancestors, everybody's going to say he blew it. And so they don't want to make that mistake. And that's oftentimes what's driving the emotional decision. So what do you do about it? You start at the beginning of the relationship. You establish fundamental investment principles. You explain what works and what doesn't work in a benign environment. So before you start working with them, they'll agree to anything that sounds rational and sensible. So what do? You get them to agree up front. Now, what do you do if the client's already a client or has been a client for a long time? You project this irrationality onto other people. You tell them stories preempting these big decisions, saying, I've had clients that, they think they're approaching big decisions logically, but I've seen so many times that there's actually emotion involved. And then you tell a little story where that was the case. And you all laugh about it. And you're able to get them to agree with you. Yeah, that's crazy to operate that way. And by getting them to agree in principle that affluent people do make emotional decisions, well, when it's crunch time, when they're about to tell you, oh my gosh, if so-and-so is elected president, I'm selling everything. We're just going to move to cash for 6 months or until it all sorts itself out. You're able to sit down and call back to your fundamental investment principles that says whatever you've told them. In my case, I make them agree up front that they have to have faith in the future for them to work with me. Now, they're willing to agree to this before the crisis, but once you're in the crunch time and they're trying to do something crazy or propose a mistake that's going to blow up their financial strategy, you need to have had a lot of benign conversations in advance of that where you're able to agree in principles like you have to have faith in the future. Otherwise, what are we doing here? It all sorts itself out eventually. And if you can't agree to that up front, well, then we're going to have a problem at some point. And then when there is a crazy recommendation on the table, you've earned the right to call back to that conversation that you've had with them, hopefully over and over and over again, so that they recognize that this time it's them operating on emotions and you never had to even say it out loud. So I've got 37 things that clients do not like, things that financial advisors do that really irritates them. I put the link in the description below. So if you look through that and you have any questions, just put comments on this video. We'd love to hear from you.